Today I'm going to be talking about if a landlord can be held responsible for a tenant's actions. Welcome back. My name's Mike Slane, the Discount Property Investor. Today I'm going to be talking about if a landlord can be held responsible for a tenant's actions. So this is a topic very near and dear to my heart because I am a landlord. Although I don't actually manage the properties myself, I have a great property management team in place and they do all the heavy lifting for me, thank goodness, because I am not a great landlord and I learned that very early on in my investing days. But again, that is a good reason to do things right. Just asking about this question in general, if a landlord can be held responsible for tenants' actions, because sadly for landlords, the answer is yes. People do not want to live in communities where there are a bunch of rental properties and then the tenants are doing things that are illegal. And again, so there are a lot of places where the courts allow landlords to actually be held responsible for some of those things. More specifically, or more often, it gets into drug dealing and drug use and that type of violation, because often that is going to have an impact on the community that's a little bit more visible. So before a landlord would really be held responsible or even found to be guilty of such a thing, of allowing such an activity to occur, most likely they would have to know about it. So again, there's going to be signs, there's going to be a lot of activity in the house, a lot of comings and goings. We actually, it's kind of funny, one of our apartment buildings, we just had the maintenance guy over there and he's like, oh man, like he was up there doing work in the basement and he sent me a picture. He's like, I found some rifles like hidden in this basement. And I was like, oh geez, we got another situation over there. He's like, yeah, the tenants say there's a lot of traffic and you don't really know what's going on. So we called the police, my property manager did, called the police, the non-emergency line, had them go over and check it out. And again, my guy knows, he says, I don't want to touch the weapons. Like I'm not going to get my fingerprints on it. I'm just report it. So the police go over, they check it out, and it turns out to be an airsoft gun. So again, it wasn't even a real rifle. And again, it was just kind of disaster averted. But it's one of those instances where, again, if something like that happens, like why is someone stashing a rifle in a common space in an apartment building? Like that's just not right. And again, you'd have to do something else about that. And again, we're still going to have our property manager look into that more. But again, had that been a real rifle, I mean, we would have had to take some action. We would have had to determine whose it was, which tenant, or who allowed a guest into the unit that is stashing weapons in our property. Like that's just not right. So again, we could be held responsible if someone was later, injured, or if they later found out, hey, this guy is dealing drugs, there was you stashing guns and yada yada. So again, if there are instances like that, you've got to really be careful and make sure that you're doing the right things. So you want to make sure, again, that if you're aware of something, you need to address it. So again, if you're aware of it, you need to address it, or you've got a much better chance as a landlord of being held liable for that. So what can happen if you are found to be the landlord of a tenant who is dealing drugs? Most likely it's going to be fines for allowing it. It's possible there's going to be criminal charges, again, if you're knowingly allowing it or if you're even helping with it. Like obviously then you're going to face some legal consequences. And in even some bigger cases, the feds can actually seize the property. So again, if it's a really big operation, I mean, you could actually lose the property. So that is something that you definitely want to keep an eye out for, illegal activity in your rental units. Now, what can you do to help avoid this situation altogether? Well, first and foremost, and I think it always comes down to being a good property manager, which I'm not. So again, I recommend getting a good property manager if you're not. But doing your due diligence up front, making sure that you're renting to somebody who is qualified to rent the apartment, therefore they don't have a long criminal history most likely. You're going to want to do even kind of simple things like in your lease agreement, you want to clearly state that criminal activity is not allowed. So again, just make it very clear, like, hey, that's a rule. We don't allow that. We don't want that there. So having a good signed lease agreement in place is very important. That's almost always one of the things that I recommend when we're talking about tenant and landlord issues. have a nice lease in place. We even, again, you can almost rely on the state's standard lease agreement, or at least if you have a licensed agent / property manager, they're gonna have access to these board forms, and they're pretty good. So again, you can rely on that and then add in additions or addendums if you see fit. What else can you do? Well, to prevent this, you're gonna want to evict anyone who does break the rules or the things in the lease, specifically illegal activity. If you know about it, you find out about it, you've got to get them out of there. They broke the lease agreement. So again, you've got reason to evict them at that point. I would also recommend, if you think this person is dangerous, obviously don't approach them yourself. Consult with an attorney and either the police or a security person when you're going to do the actual eviction or be over at the property after that point. Because again, you really want to be careful, guys. This is not something worth risking your lives over. We're just talking about rental real estate and trying to do what's right. So guys, can a landlord be held responsible for a tenant's actions? Yes, they can. And it really comes down to a couple of things. It's one, if you know that they are doing something, and two, if it was allowed or permitted in your lease agreement. So again, I think those are kind of the two main points on whether or not you as a landlord are going to be held responsible for your tenants. As always, consult with an attorney before making any legal decisions and get those leases reviewed. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have more questions, please drop them in the comments below. I love making videos like this, helping you guys out. If you're looking for more great information on real estate, please check out the discountpropertyinvestor.com website. That's discountpropertyinvestor.com. You can find our podcast, some free courses. One of my favorites, the free Landlord course, is going to show you how I built my portfolio using little to none of my own money. And we've got other ones on the Wholesaling, freewholesalecourse.com. Check it all out, all available at Discount Property Investor. Thanks for watching.